do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of thy King, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I hear you, sir.
You may be seated.
I think it's a good improvement. About a 10 now. About a 10 out of 100 now.
This Honorable House now resume its sitting. I wish to welcome all to this sitting of the Honorable House of Representatives this Wednesday, May 13, 2026. As always, it is an honor and a privilege to do so. Today we will be hearing from the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, as well as a Member of Parliament from Manchester Northwestern and St. James Southern, who will be making their contribution to this sectoral debate today. I wish to welcome the team from the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining. I would also like to welcome constituents from the constituencies of the St. Elizabeth Southwestern, Manchester Northwestern, St. James Southern, who are here today in support of their Member of Parliament. I also welcome those of you who are joining us online via the various social media platforms, the PBCJ live stream, as well as all other guests who are here with us in the gallery. Call of the roll. Call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Green, Dr. Holness, Dr. Chang, Mrs. Williams, Mr. Bartlett, Ms. Grange, Dr. Tufton, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Montague, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Charles Jr., Mr. Morgan, Ambassador Marks, Mr. Samuda, Dr. Wheatley, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Terrelong, Mr. Witter, Mrs. Dalrymple Filbert, Ms. Morrison, Ms. Lee, Mr. Donovan Williams, Mr. Mean, Ms. Crawford, Mr. Delroy Williams, Ms. Hamilton, Mr. Sivrice, Ms. Sazan, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Bunting, Ms. Burchell, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Cousins, Mr. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Dr. Dawes, Mr. Golding, Mr. Gordon, Mr. Hales, Mr. Hines, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Ms. Jess, Mrs. Malahoo Fort, Mrs. Miller Bennis, Mr. Morris, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Newell, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Ms. Perkins, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Dr. Russell, Ms. Shaw, Mr. Smith, Mr. Vaz, and Mr. Warmington. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. How could I forget? I'm seeing some students in the gallery. They are from the Mile Gully High School, 16 in numbers and 2 teachers. Let us welcome them all. Statement by Minister.
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm not a minister and Mexican Prime Minister. Just allow me to speak, Madam. Mr. Speaker, I stood earlier. You don't ask me question. The Speaker is in charge and Speaker me a chance to speak. Mr. Speaker, over the years, I realized that the protocol and the operation of Parliament has decreased. When I came in 1980 over the years, the protocol is that once the Speaker enters that door, nobody else comes in until after prayers. And once, that's true, you agree with me? Thank you. And once the Speaker enters that door, members are not supposed to be cross-talking and talking to each other. You stand in reverence until after prayers. Until reverence, until the Speaker says, you may take your seat. You don't speak. That decency must return. It must return.
Thank you very much, member.
I raised today because today was worse than other days. The crosstalk and noise, it must stop. And we must bring back that order and decency to this House.
Statement by Minister. Announcement.
Laid on the table of the House is the following. Green paper numbered 01 of 2026 titled National Youth in Agricultural Policy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions. Papers. Reports from committees. Notice of motion given orally.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice at the next meeting of the House. I will move. Be it resolved, with reference to the resolution approved by this Honorable House appointing the Standing Orders Committee, that this committee be allowed to hold hybrid meetings that are partly virtual and partly physical, utilizing available information and communications technologies in the manner more specifically outlined below. Preserving the rights, powers, and privileges, including voting rights, normally accorded to a member of a committee, the committee is hereby empowered to 1. Convene and hold meetings in virtual spaces created using information and communication technologies, which shall be considered committee meetings for the purpose of the mandate of the committee. 2. Allow access and participation from remote locations as are enabled by means of information and virtual technologies by members and other persons authorized by the committee. 3, include members accessing and participating from remote locations as part of its quorum. 4, receive, consider, deliberate on, and respond to feedback and submissions in formats, modes, and media, and via platforms, modes, and media enabled by means of information and communication technologies from any person. 5, consider any and all information generated, communicated, and received via formats, platforms, modes, or media as enabled by means of information and communication technologies as forming part of the record of committee meetings. Mr. Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion.
Questions and answers to questions. Motion that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notices. Motion relating to the sitting of the House. Motion for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business.
Before we go to the presentation, I just want to finish this. Mr. Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier. The question is that the standing orders be suspended to enable the minister to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
The question is that the standing order be suspended to enable the minister to take the motion, notice of which he gave earlier. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Speaker. Speaker, I do not know if you could give me permission for getting some clarification. We have a portable AC in here. It has taken away totally from listening and getting good understanding from what the members are saying. Yesterday I had a very difficult time, and I believe it is getting even louder. Today, for whatever reason, it is much louder, and I do not know how you'll be able to correct this situation so that we'll be able to communicate a little better.
I understand you, Madam Member, but as it is, the air condition or the repairing of the air condition is at procurement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I now move that the motion of which I gave notice earlier be approved.
The question is that the motion, notice of which the minister gave earlier, be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today it's our intention to continue the sectoral debates as outlined earlier. And I just want to remind those listening and members of the House that the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining and Member of Parliament for St. Elizabeth Southwestern, the Honourable Floyd Green, will be presenting, as well as the Member of Parliament for Western Manchester and the Member of Parliament for St. James Southern. I now invite the member from St. Elizabeth Southwestern and the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries to begin his presentation, followed by the two members I noted earlier.
Mr. Speaker, before the Minister presents having a discussion with the minister and the speaker yesterday. The minister's responsibility also covers mining outside of agriculture and fisheries. And I also am the spokesperson for mining. And seeing the time that has been given, we had asked for an extra time to be able to cover that subject matter. So I am asking for some consideration to be able to cover that subject matter. As I said, so I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, for that consideration. It's not usually likely that an opposition member would ask for extra time for the minister and himself at the same time. So if it pleases you, Mr. Speaker.
Floyd. Mr. Speaker, we are aware that discussions did take place. We're aware that discussions did take place yesterday with the hope of facilitating the request. So I, as House Leader acting, I have no objection to the request.
10 minutes. 10 minutes at the end.
The speaker will be given, or the presenter will be given 10 minutes only. You have 45, you have an extra 15, and surplus of 10. Gets 5. Please do not try to confuse the situation. The minister will get 45 first. He has a second 15, and you're now asking to give him 10. I am saying that he's getting that extra 10, you're getting 5, along with what you had before.
Mr. Speaker, Isaiah 40 verse 31 says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Mr. Speaker, I stand here today by the grace of God and his continued mercy. I remain grateful for his guidance, his covering, and his strength, especially in times of disaster. Mr. Speaker, I'm aware that many Jamaicans have lifted me up in their prayers, especially after Hurricane Melissa, and I am grateful for their prayers. To my wife, Kerida, and my son, Nathaniel, thank you for your grounding, your patience, and your love. Madam Speaker, I thank Prime Minister Andrew Holness. He is an astute, effective, caring, action-oriented leader who was made for these times, and I am grateful for the confidence he has placed in me. To my cabinet colleagues, my fellow members of Parliament, I am happy to be a part of this team, and I am happy to serve in this House. My ever-present State Minister, my guide, my friend, Mr. Franklin Witter, thank you for your support. And my extremely hard-working Permanent Secretary, Dermot Spence, and a dedicated team across the ministry and its agencies. Mr. Speaker, I am here because of the people of Southwest St. Elizabeth. I have never left their side, and I will never leave their side. We have entered new ground with a third consecutive term, and there are many more to come. Mr. Speaker, the world is going through a very uncertain period right now. Every evening we turn on the news, we see conflict, war, disruptions, growing instability across major economies. And while these conflicts seem far away from Jamaica, they eventually affect all of us here at home. Growing forward is more than sharing our recovery journey. It's about ensuring systems of resilience and adaptation are ingrained in the ecosystem of our sectors. Not just forward planning for climate change, not just forward planning for global insecurities, but ensure that we're implementing actions that will lead to true transformation. It's about the youth in Boghole. It's about the youth in Anatole Bay. It's about the youth in Newcomb Valley or Penance. We have to ensure that they can see a future in agriculture, in fisheries, and in mining. We are confident, Mr. Speaker, that if we develop our production systems to truly feed ourselves in times of rain, drought, or war, if we capitalize on the blue economy, if we develop new industries of mining, our people will be better off, our rural communities will be better off, and our country, Jamaica, will fulfill her true potential. Today I present Growing Forward, the blueprint for a better future. Mr. Speaker, a little over a year ago, the Prime Minister directed that we develop a 10-year agricultural plan for Jamaica. While the ministry has always had short-term strategic plans, a broad-based, more holistic plan that spans multiple terms and charts a transformational journey for agriculture was needed. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the opposition shared that very same viewpoint when the member from Clarendon was their spokesperson on agriculture. He advocated that we develop a holistic agricultural development plan. It is a suggestion that has been put in the Gleaner and in the Observer multiple times. Members, I'm pleased to announce today that with the help of the Food and Agricultural Organization, we have completed a draft 10-year National Agricultural Developmental Plan. This plan focuses on resilient and sustainable production systems, innovative agribusiness and value chains, efficient agricultural trade, food security and nutrition, and also incorporates a number of cross-cutting areas like research, information technology, agricultural workforce, youth, gender, and predial larceny. Mr. Speaker, today I am making the draft public for feedback. I will be sending a copy to the emails of all our members of Parliament so that you can share with us your contribution to this National Development Plan. We will also place the plan on the moa.gov.jm website for agricultural stakeholder feedback, and people can email in their comments. This is our plan. This is not one side's plan. This is Jamaica's plan to move agriculture forward. Members, as we seek to finalize our National Agricultural Development Plan, let me use today's presentation to outline some of where we are, the work that we have already undertaken to set the foundation for the plan, and some of the main initiatives for this year. In 2025, Jamaica's domestic crop sector produced 811,244 tons, representing a 5.7% increase over 2024, and in fact, the second highest level of output on record. Members, this is particularly significant when you think about the fact that for the last quarter, with Hurricane Melissa, we declined by 22%. What it means is that a year after Hurricane Beryl, our agricultural sector has rebounded so strongly that even with the impact of Melissa, we hit our second highest production numbers in the history of Jamaica. This is a testament to the hard work and resilience of our farmers. And members, we must applaud our farmers for their hard work and their resilience. But it is also a testament to the work of the government and the fact that over the last 10 years, we have made strategic investments in agriculture to build resilience. And we saw this resilience being tested after Hurricane Melissa. Hurricane Melissa stands on record as the most catastrophic weather event in the history of Jamaica's agricultural society. We saw $36.12 billion in losses. The World Bank estimated that the overall impact and the multiplier effect is over 60 billion Jamaican dollars. But, Mr. Speaker, this administration is not one to throw their hands on their head and say, woe is we. We have not rested on our laurels. This is not the spirit of the government of Andrew Holness. We have moved forward with action and set about on recovery. Within a week of Hurricane Melissa, we were able to restore 75% of our irrigation customers through backup generation, and over 90% of those customers got back water within 1 month of Hurricane Melissa. And you know what this government did? We provided that water free of cost up to the end of February. We provided free land preparation and have already prepared over 2,000 hectares valued at over $80 million free of cost to our farmers. We provided direct support to specific crop lines. We provided about $150 million in input to farmers of fruits and vegetables. We provided $100 million in specialized formulated fertilizer to over 7,000 banana and plantain farmers. And I know my banana and plantain lovers have been wondering, banana is coming back. We provided $100 million to reestablish 643 hectares of yam through the provision of yam heads, stakes, and over 5,000 bags of fertilizer, impacting over 2,000 farmers. We provided $40 million to distribute 1.3 million hot pepper seeds and $39 million for apiculture or bee keepers, providing them with over 5,000 bags of bee sugar. Additionally, entities like the FAO, United Way, and American Friends of Jamaica have played a role in this recovery effort. Mr. Speaker, we have seen the results. Some expected that 6 months after Hurricane Melissa, Jamaica's agricultural sector would still be in shortage and we would still be seeing high prices. This has not been our reality. From as early as January, 3 months after Hurricane Melissa, we saw the tremendous bounce back of our vegetable production. In fact, when the BOJ met to speak about inflation, they said that the direct impact of Hurricane Melissa on inflation was less severe than initially anticipated due to a faster than expected recovery in agricultural supplies. Members, you may not know, but the first quarter vegetable production of 2026 is the highest first quarter vegetable production in the history of Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't mean that all is well. It does not mean that we are out of the proverbial woods. And it does not mean that every single farmer has received support. That is not the case. We still have more work to be done to recover from Hurricane Melissa. There are crop lines which, based on the extent of the damage, require more long-term support. And the reality is that the recovery efforts has been hampered now by what is happening in the world with rising input prices, supply chain disruptions, challenges around agrochemicals and fuel prices. So we understand that we have to work even harder to ensure that Jamaica can feed itself. That is why we're happy that we would have received under this budget $1.2 billion towards our production and productivity program. I know there's a lot of talk about developing a fund for agriculture. One of the things that this government has done well is to institutionalize the funding for agriculture. In 2019, the programs around agriculture used to get $400 million. We moved that by 2021 to give those programs $1 billion Jamaican dollars. And since that time, we have maintained that every year since that, over $1 billion goes into the programs of the Ministry of Agriculture. Over $5 billion over the last 5 years directly to agriculture. And let us be clear, this is different from the money that we're spending on capital projects. Right. This is different than the money that we're spending on recovery. This is our programmatic budget. This government has taken agriculture serious. We're going to move into phase 2 of our recovery effort. And we're going to provide additional support for our livestock farmers, our yam farmers, our coffee farmers. In fact, we're exploring developing a voucher system that can provide direct support to those who are yet to receive. We have earmarked about $250 million to continue that agricultural recovery program. One of the things that we all know now is that if we are to grow forward, we have to grow some of it ourselves. And that is why we continue to encourage our people to engage in backyard farming. I myself have embarked on an aeroponic tower journey in my backyard, and I commend it to all the members. But the government is going to continue to support it. So this year, we will be continuing our backyard gardening program, and we'll be distributing 5,000 backyard gardening kits targeting urban spaces and also some aeroponic towers so we can increase the production at home. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we know Hurricane Melissa wiped out a significant amount of our fruit trees. And that is why we are redoubling our efforts to establish 3,000 acres of orchard crops by 2035. We're going to be focusing on ackee, breadfruit, mango, coconut, and avocado. In fact, we have worked with trees that feed, and we have gotten 3 new avocado varieties: the Hass, the Carla, and the Semel 34. Why is this important, Mr. Speaker, as a man who loves avocado? These varieties give us the ability to grow avocado right around the year. We will move it from a seasonal crop. We're also going to continue our citrus redevelopment program. We will bring back our citrus industry. Another one that we're focusing on is the Wambugu apple. If you haven't heard about it, look it up. We're now growing it in our agri park, and we're going to use it to replace the very popular American apple. Came out of Kenya, has taken well to this environment. We're going to be focusing on that. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I have tasked Don McGlashan and Loxley Wakes to work with the forestry and our seed certification unit and our nurseries to rapidly expand our fruit tree planting base. And we're starting on a drive this year that every single household in Jamaica must have at least 1 fruit tree by 2033. That is our direction. Livestock development is central to reducing our import dependency and stabilizing domestic protein supply. I am pleased to announce to the members of this House that we're in the final stages of the development of the National Livestock Policy. In fact, we expect the policy to be at the green paper by the end of Q2 in this financial year. That National Livestock Policy will modernize breeding and genetic improvement systems, will strengthen animal health, veterinary services, and biosecurity, will improve feed security and local feed production, will promote climate-resilient livestock housing and management practices, will enhance food safety, traceability, and quality standards. It's something that the member from Eastern Westmoreland, when he spoke about, when we were talking about dairy, spoke about a livestock policy. It will come to the end of the second quarter of this financial year. We will conclude the policy framework and continue to strengthen our livestock sector. We have been working with the Veterinary Services Division, and in fact, we've acquired about $70 million worth of equipment to really revitalize our genetic bank at Bodles so that we can do more artificial insemination and more embryo transfers so that we can drive especially our dairy sector. The Jamaica Dairy Development Board will be commencing phase 2 of its genetic improvement program. and we will be importing some high quality animals. In fact, we have earmarked to import this financial year 200 high yield animals from the United States. While we do that, we have already purchased 400 heifers from Surge, and we're going to be distributing those to farmers across the country to strengthen dairy production. On the small ruminant side, we're taking an ecosystem approach to expand small ruminants with a focus on genetics, nutrition, and veterinary care. We're building out fodder banks, we're distributing goats, in fact, one of the things that we have focused on is the rapid multiplication to expand our small ruminant herd. Last year, we brought in 255 goats. We did 152 artificial inseminations. This year, we're targeting to bring in 1,000 goats to help expand our small ruminant sector. Madam Speaker, I see the Minister of Water is here, and he's shared a report with me from the Meteorological Service, which has projected that Jamaica will experience drier conditions and elevated heat levels with the possibility of a protracted drought. In this financial year, RADA will intensify our drought mitigation strategy. We are going to be embarking on a 145 million mini water catchment pond construction program. What that means, members, in our high production zones, we're going to be building out water catchment ponds. And we're targeting those parishes that are known for drought. But we're not stopping there. We're going to have to start some trucking. And we're going to be purchasing 2 more water trucks for the NIC to serve underserved areas. There are in some communities that you have catchment tanks already. We want to rehabilitate those catchment tanks and use them for agriculture. We're going to be distributing plastic and grass mulch because we also have to change our planting patterns so that people are keeping the moisture in the soil. And we'll be providing some drip irrigation systems and water tanks. In fact, we're starting to roll out these interventions now. And members of Parliament, you are going to be a part of that rollout. So today you will get an allocation to help your farmers deal with the oncoming drought. We want to start now before it is too late. But that is just part of the problem. The bigger problem is, where will the water of the future come from? Yes, we are the land of wood and water, but water is always in demand. And that is why the National Irrigation System, National Irrigation Commission, will start this year to truly explore non-traditional water sources. We're going to be looking at desalination facilities to use that to provide irrigated water for our farmers. We're also going to be looking at grey water-based technologies as we drive our long-term water resilience. We are going to continue building out irrigation. In fact, we have earmarked 6,000 hectares to be built out over the next 5 years. This will bring our country to over 50% of arable land that has water. And what are those projects? The Pedro Plains irrigation expansion, which there is budget for that this year, to continue to build out irrigation that will serve over 4,000 hectares. And we have 4 smaller projects that will serve about 2,000 hectares. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the farmers in Essex Valley, farmers very familiar to Member Witter and Member Bunting, that we will be turning on their irrigation supply before the end of 2026. In Amity Hall and Bridgepen, the second quarter of 2027, we will turn on that irrigation system. We are building a better Jamaica through irrigation. Let me speak a little bit about our agro-parks. You know, we made a massive step last year in Clarendon, what is that, Southwestern, where we did the Parnassus Agro Park. 700 acres of former sugarland that we transform into an agri-park in Clarendon. Farmers like Dorrit James and Noel Reed were able to get back in the field quickly after Hurricane Melissa. In fact, members, there's an article I would love you all to read. December 30, 2025, in the Jamaica Gleaner, where they spoke to Mr. Reed. And Mr. Reed, having lost so much from Hurricane Melissa, was back out in the field. And they asked Mr. Reed, why are you back out in the field? Mr. Reed said he is out in the field because he now has access to water. He says before he would lose 50% of his profits due to lack of water access. He can now guarantee, these are his words, 100% return on his investment because water is accessible on his farm. This is how you build a better Jamaica and grow forward. This government has committed to the people of Jamaica that we will build an agri-park in every parish. I spoke about it last year, and as such, let me update the House as to where we are. We have identified potential sites in every parish that does not now have an agri-park. In St. Mary, New Pen has been identified, and we have already dug the well in New Pen, and we're designing a pressurized irrigation system. In Portland, Lower Layton has been identified. And we are going to be doing river training, we're going to be doing irrigation, storage, and a road network. In St. Anne, we've identified 2, Litford and Hindstown, and we're breaking ground for Litford this year to start the work on that agri-park. In Westmoreland, we have identified Frome, started that feasibility study. In Hanover, Orange Bay and Spring Valley, we've started feasibility studies on those. In St. James, Montpelier seems to be the front runner for that agri-park, and in Trelawney, Long Pond, and Ettington, those are the areas that we're focusing on. One of the things that we're doing, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't make sense. You're in our agri-parks, you have the land, and you're not using it. We are taking back the lands from people who are not using the lands in the agri-parks. Last year we took back 120 acres, and we have identified another 280 acres that we're planning to take back this year if people don't put them into production. This will increase our utilization closer to 80% of our agri-parks. Mr. Speaker, as we grow forward to build resilience, we understand that protected agriculture is a fundamental part of our strategy. Today, I am pleased to inform the nation that this government is embarking on the largest outlay of protected agriculture structures in our history. The government is spending $800 million constructing 95 greenhouses across 4 parishes before the end of this year. Moko Clarendon, we're doing 40 greenhouses. Lancaster in South Manchester, we're doing 10 greenhouses. Water Valley in St. Anne, we're doing 20 greenhouses. Damhead in St. Catherine, we're doing 10 greenhouses. Damhead, I think, is the member Crawford. Blackstone Edge in St. Anne, we're doing 15 greenhouses. In Content Manchester, Damhead is you, 10 greenhouses. In Content Manchester, we're transforming our greenhouse cluster into a protected agricultural zone, complete with storage and a new farm road. We are growing forward through protected agriculture. One area that I must address, under the Green Climate Fund Adapt Jamaica project, we are seeking to design and build greenhouses that can withstand Category 5 hurricanes. Is one of the hallmarks of the project. We're going to be designing a greenhouse that is fit for purpose for our reality, and we're going to be spending over $1.5 billion over the next 5 years to roll out those greenhouses. Madam Speaker, The uncertainty in today's world commands that we search for more local inputs, prioritize the growing systems which focus on local methodologies, and healthier and more sustainable outcomes. Organic farming is a major part of the solution. Through the Jamaica Soil Regeneration and Fertility Improvement Project, the ministry has provided $50 million to the organic sector. Last year alone, we trained over 1,380 persons in soil management strategies across all 14 parishes. This project is now slated to move into its final phase, focusing on conducting research, using soil water management strategies to increase organic crop production. Members, we are developing a national organic agriculture policy. This will establish a framework to consistently support our organic farmers. It will include certification systems, capacity building for farmers, and market development strategies. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, we have met with the private sector. And one of our hallmark projects that we're looking to work on is to develop a local organic fertilizer, which will help us in real ways, not just improve small health, but what we're looking to do is to reduce the organic waste in our country and turn that into fertilizer to help our farmers. Members in this house are familiar with the challenge that we have, where oftentimes our farmers do their best and then don't have markets for their produce. We have to address these challenges. And we're going to take a holistic approach to address these challenges. Firstly, we have to increase storage. We're spending billions of dollars in Essex Valley, and we would have launched last year the Essex Valley Storage and Agro-Processing Facility, which can hold about 22 containers of produce. We are presently using it now to store things like Irish and things like onion. We are, and scallion. We are seeking a private sector partnership for its long-term management. In Kirkvine, we're spending $100 million to build out 350 square meters of storage. I can tell the member from Central Manchester, we are opening that facility in another 2 months. The member from Northeast Manchester will be happy to know that we're spending $300 million on Coliville, where we are rehabilitating 2,600 cubic meters of cold storage. The Flaggerman Cold Storage Facility was established last year, and we're going to put it into operation the end of this month. I am pleased to announce that this financial year, we will be establishing 3 semi-industrial onion dryers across our main onion areas: St. Thomas, St. Catherine, St. Elizabeth. This will reduce onion loss, wastage, and support the extended supply of onion. Listen to what I said. Don't watch up there, sir. We have earmarked $80 billion for that activity. That is just one area. The other area is agro-processing. We have to do more value added. And that's why we have to help our businesses to invest in agriculture. And some of them are investing, and they should be recognized. You can't call all of them, but I want to commend the Caribbean Broilers Group, who just announced that they're going to be putting $1 billion in agriculture over the next 12 months to build out egg and pork production. And they're going to, for the first time in their history, take on contract egg farmers. That's a major step. Walkerswood is now expanding their capacity threefold, and they are investing in the Parnassus Agro Park. And it's not just big investment. Some of the best value-added investments are small investments. And I want to congratulate Believe Farms. If you haven't heard the story of Believe Farms, a young lady who went to university, decided she wanted to be an entrepreneur, is from Kingston, had no land, went to our agri park, started with 5 acres, now has 22 acres, and has gone into her own line of sweet potato chips and sodas. And she joins us in the house, and I'm very happy that she could be here with us today. The chips members are in your bags. Every bag of a chip. But in order for us to have more business type investment, we have to ensure that our agricultural sector is bankable. In 2021, the ministry engaged the private sector around appropriate insurance protection for our agricultural sector from weather-related peril. Weather Protect by GK Insurance was born, a parametric insurance scheme which guards against extreme wind, rain, and drought. 5 years later, and hundreds of farmers have benefited, including payouts from Beryl, Raphael, and Melissa. But the truth is, members, hundreds need to be thousands. These extreme weather events are a part of our everyday reality. And as such, insuring crops against these perils not only makes our farmers more bankable, but also gives them the security to recover faster. Today, members, I'm pleased to announce that as we grow forward, this government will be providing $50 million to provide insurance coverage for 5,000 farmers, prioritizing our agri-parks, our youth, and our women. We are growing forward. Madam Speaker, as we speak about agri-processing, RADA has to play a more active role in agri-processing. And what we are doing, and you will like this, Mr. Speaker, we are revamping the RADA incubators, started with St. James, where we have to provide a space with more suitable equipment for small agri-processors, so they can engage in recipe formulation, small-scale production, and start to build scale. Then we're going to use the RADA Agrimat as the outlet for them to sell their products. Additionally, the RADA Home Economics Unit will be seeking to engage our fast food companies and agri-processors with recipes that they have developed utilizing local produce for commercialization. We will be also engaging the Ministry of Education to develop a slate of products for distribution that utilize excess agricultural produce. The last area to deal with the excess is our farmers' market. Our farmers' market have worked, and we are going to now ramp up the numbers of farmers' market that we have. We're going to increase the number that we have at the ministry. We're going to target areas like Negril, St. James, Portland, Portmore, to keep more farmers' markets. Members, I could not speak without talking about what we're doing with technology. If you have not yet downloaded the RADA app on the Android or in the Play Store, please do so. In your iPhone store, please do so. The app now has a feature that the farmers can use the app to apply for benefits directly. And it gives us the ability to track if they have gotten or not. But we're going a little further. One, we have completed phase 1 of a digital platform which centralizes crop production data, giving us real-time visibility in what is being planted, where it is located, and how it is progressing through each stage of the crop cycle. This is a predictive AI-driven tool that will allow us to do better forecasting of supply. What it means, members, is that the farmer, prior to planting, will be able to see how much tomato is being planted in his community, in his parish, in his country, so that he makes better decisions. We have another thing that we're unveiling, a national agribusiness logistic map that will help us to provide real-time market data, especially in relation to pricing for all our consumers and our distributors. But the last one, members, that I think you will like. We are introducing today a new digital tool for members of this honorable house. This platform will provide you MPs with real-time visibility into the agricultural activity at your constituency, allowing you to see what is being produced, where it is happening, who is receiving benefit, allowing you to contact your parish manager, allowing you to submit your beneficiary listings. It will also include a module for farm roads. So you will see the agricultural access roads in your communities, the location, the length, the number of farmers they serve, so that you can make better decisions in relation to which farm roads are to be prioritized. MPs are critical partners as we grow agriculture forward. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica Food Import Bill continues to place significant pressure on foreign exchange and the cost of living. While Jamaica has been able to achieve self-sufficiency in poultry, pork, eggs, and most of our vegetable lines, our consumption of grain and wheat, and the increase in animal feed, plus fish and mutton, still make Jamaica very susceptible to global inflation and supply chain shocks. As a part of our 10-year development plan, we will be expanding our import substitution drive. But we're not starting from scratch. Through programs led by the ministry, we have already made important progress in reducing import reliance in several areas. The Onion Development Program has significantly expanded local onion production. Our Irish Potato Program continues to support greater local supply. Investments in poultry, pork, and protected agriculture have helped strengthen domestic production in our vegetable lines. We will ventilate this more, especially when we have finalized the plan. But it suffices to say that we will be taking policy and programmatic steps to increase the local production of components of our animal feed. One of the challenges we have is as we drive our poultry industry, as we drive our small ruminant industry, we're seeing increased imports for animal feed. We have to substitute some of that with what we can produce locally. The other thing that I will speak about later is our increase in aquaculture. We have to bring down the amount of fish that we import. Now, a lot of it is saltfish, but we also import a lot of other types of fish, like snapper, bangameri. We have to drive that down. I'll speak about it. The other thing that we're going after is to reduce our mutton importation, whether through policy or as we expand the herd size. We believe we can ramp up our small ruminant herd to treat with our mutton needs. Mr. Speaker, the ministry understands that for farmers, reliable road infrastructure is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Under the Farm Road Rehabilitation Program, we have made significant strides in strengthening this foundation. The ministry allocated last year $900 million for our Farm Road Program. And we were able to rehabilitate over 50 roads across 25 constituencies, impacting thousands of farmers. Cave Valley, Frankfield, Temple Hall, Williamsfield in Manchester, Leamington in Westmoreland, all a part of last year's program. But we are consistently looking how can we do it better. Last year we piloted a union-layer soil and concrete road in East Rural St. Andrew. That technology out of Mexico, mix the soil with the concrete. It leads to a more cost-effective road. We wanted to see the strength. It went through Hurricane Melissa and it stood up extremely well. And if you know East Rural St. Andrew, the terrain is challenging. We want to expand that program. We're going to take it slowly. We're going to be doing 6 more this year, especially targeting the areas that are extremely vulnerable. Under the Farm Road Rehabilitation Program, we're targeting to do 60 roads across our production zones this year. One of the things that I want people to reflect on, last year in total, Minister of Finance, and we thank you, last year in total, between our original Farm Road Program, which was 52, and our Melissa Rehabilitation Program, which was 39, we did last year 81 farm roads. Which, let me tell you something, that 81 farm roads is more than the other side ever did in all their years of government since independence. We have to fact check it. Fact check that one for me. Let me talk quickly about research. Because we are embarking on the most extensive infrastructure pipeline for our research centers in the history of Jamaica. This year we have over 40 individual projects to strengthen our research infrastructure. We have allocated $950 million, and we will do projects including the continuation of the construction of a new piggery at Borders. We're doing 2 new small ruminant houses at Borders. We're doing some work at Mount Pelion Research Station. We're constructing a brand new goat house at the Hounslow Research Station. We're also commencing repairs to the internal farm road network at the Orange River Research Station, and to strengthen that nursery, which is the primary nursery in the Caribbean for exotic fruit plants. We're going to be procuring multiple farm equipments for Borders and Orange River. Madam Speaker, as labor becomes more challenging to our small farmers, we're moving to put more equipment at the fingertips of our farmers. In fact, members, we are providing more equipment for RADA in 1 year than the other side did in 18 years. This year, between our Hills to Ocean project, between our own budget, between our recovery budget, we have provided RADA with 10 rubber wheel tractors, 18 walk behind. Let me start over. This year, between our Hills to Ocean project, our own budget, our recovery budget, we are providing RADA with 10 rubber wheel tractors, 18 walk behind tractors, 26 soil augers, 4 sprayer drones, 3 surveillance drones, all of which will go into the equipment rental program for our small farmers. I wouldn't speak.
Minister,
I wouldn't.
just continue. Your
Yes.
15 minutes starts now.
I wouldn't present without speaking about our youth. Mr. Speaker, in my last sectoral presentation, I announced the development of our national youth in agriculture policy. I'm happy to announce today that I am tabling the policy as a green paper. We have concluded national public consultations with a wide variety of stakeholders, which will inform the final white paper, which will be presented within Q2 of this financial year. The youth policy will expand technical and entrepreneurial training, will provide structured pathways to land and financing, will promote youth-led climate-smart agriculture, will improve access to insurance and risk management tools for our youth, and will institutionalize youth participation in our decision-making policy. Madam Speaker, our youth represent the new frontier in persons engaged in agriculture. And it would be remiss of us not to recognize that more young people are coming into the agricultural space. Madam Speaker, in fact, in the last 2 years, we have seen a significant increase in youth farmer registrations. In fact, 1 in every 5 registrations is a youth farmer, which means, Mr. Speaker, we have added nearly 4,000 new youth to our agricultural database. I'll go a little further. We had put forward a policy to say that young people must have at least 25% of agricultural land in the agri-parks, and that has held true. But for the last financial year, where we provided 200 of acres of land to our youth, that represents 34% of all the lands we had available last year. Our youth are doing extremely well. And we have to continue that. This year we will be rolling out scholarships for the top boy and top girl in each parish in agricultural science. If you are the top in the parish for agricultural science, we will give you a scholarship to go to Case to continue in agriculture. The other thing that we're looking to do is that we have to take the next 5 years to transform Case into a university. The reality is that the Ministry of Agriculture has increased its support to Case, in fact providing approximately 80 million annually to do the development to ensure that the training is top-notch. We have helped them and worked with agencies like Ofana in developing a tissue culture laboratory. We have developed a state-of-the-art broiler house, a modern piggery, goat barn, and now we're going to be working with Case to develop a hatchery to help us deal with any shortage in layer pullets. Case will be that institution that will drive the resurgence. Already, and I know Member Montague, already Case has entered into partnership with Tuskegee University to provide 6 of their students who will not just train at Case, but they will finish their training at Tuskegee University through a partnership that we have developed. Let me say a little bit about predatory larceny. Last year we committed that the police will be establishing the Agricultural Protection Branch to enhance this government's fight against agricultural theft. So said, so done. In June of last year, the branch started out with 65 police officers across multiple divisions. Now, Minister of National Security, with your support and the Commissioner, the branch now has 115 officers. And we have already started to see the real impact in the fight against predatory larceny. We moved from 115 arrests in 2024 to 642 arrests last year, a whopping 400% increase. In 2024, we seized 30 vehicles. Last year, we seized 162 vehicles under the work of the Agricultural Protection Branch. But probably one of the best statistics, in 2024, only 18 persons were convicted for predatory larceny related offenses. Last year, 145 people were convicted for predatory larceny offenses. Mr. Speaker, we have had some delays as the technical team finalizes the regulations for agricultural wardens. I know some of the young people now are at home, frustrated, having been interviewed and done their tests, and they're ready to start training. I apologize for the delay and urge the technical teams at the Ministry of National Security and the MOA and the JCF to resolve this matter within the next 3 weeks so we can start training by June to have our agricultural wardens by December. Madam Speaker, fisheries remains critical to Jamaica's food security and agricultural development. Our fisher folk are among the most resilient, operating at the front line of climate vulnerability while continuing to supply our nation with seafood. First, we must commend our fishers. A number of them took heed to our warnings and brought in their boats for Hurricane Melissa, and we never saw a lot of loss of life. Nevertheless, they suffered tremendous damage, over $5 billion in damage. Despite this, our fishers have shown tremendous resilience. We have to move now from recovery to rebuilding. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, to ensure the future of our fisheries sector, we have to prioritize aquaculture. This year, we will complete our 5 million fry per annum capacity recirculating aquaculture system. We had some construction setbacks, especially with Hurricane Melissa, but we have gotten the budgetary allocation of about 200 million to complete this project. This will bring our national capacity to 13 million fry per annum. This will drive our freshwater fish sector. But we are going a bit further. Last year, Mr. Speaker, we developed our first freshwater prawn commercial facility at Twickenham Park. And we produce over 386,000 post-larvae of those freshwater prawns. And we have issued already 147,000 to 12 commercial and 32 backyard fish farmers. We are going to be driving prawn production in Jamaica. The other thing that we have done with the help of the FAO is that in Bowden in St. Thomas, we have established for the first time in the English-speaking Caribbean cage culture, where we are growing snappers in cages in the sea out in Bowden. This is what happens all over the world to drive your production of seafood. The pilot has worked, and now we're looking for commercial partners to drive that process. We know that conservation, member from Northeast St. Anne, is critical to our marine ecosystem. Our sanctuaries have worked and now safeguard 11,000 hectares of critical marine habitat. I'm pleased to announce that we will declare 2 new sanctuaries this year in Alligator Pond and Salt Marsh, which will cover 12,250 hectares of marine ecosystem. Mr. Speaker, we continue. Madam Speaker, so good to see you. We continue to drive the blue economy. We will focus on CMOS. Over the last 3 years, we have trained 200 fishers in CMOS husbandry, and the NFA anticipates that the commercial CMOS production will increase threefold from 1,400 kilograms in 2025 to 5,000 kilograms by 2027. We have trained over 320 fishers in pelagic fishing, and our next step is now to build out the cold chain resources for them. So when they go out and catch the marlin, catch the mahi-mahi, they have the facilities to keep that cold and supply it to our market. We're continuing to drive oyster production. And in fact, a very sad story, because we had a really good group, 2 groups in Westmoreland and Hanover that had 8 racks holding over 4,500 dozen oysters ready for harvest, and they lost all of that in Hurricane Melissa. Nonetheless, we are going to help them to build it back. We have allocated over $1 million to rebuild their oyster farms and to restore their oyster collection systems. This will help 48 oyster farmers. You know, one of the things that we have done, we have moved the registration and licensing system for fishers to an online system, something called IRIFINS. It used to take, when I became minister, about 5 months for a fisher to get their renewal or their fishing license. It now takes the maximum 5 days. That is how this government has moved. But we've seen some good returns. When I became minister, the renewals were only 20%. Now that we've made it easier, we're up to 50% of our fishers doing their renewals. And outside of that, compliance. When the Coast Guard went out, they weren't finding a lot of people with their fisher's license. Now, what they have told us, 78% of the people they interact with have a fishing license. We're moving in the right direction. Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to announce today that we're making a fundamental change in fisheries enforcement. Come September, through a memorandum of understanding that we're signing with the TAJ and the Ministry of National Security in July, we are going to be joining the information management system of the TAJ and the MNS. What does this mean? It means that when enforcement officers stop our fishers, instead of sending them to court, they can issue them with a ticket, they can pay their ticket, and they can continue to do what they are doing. So we're going to be bringing in some of the offenses under the system, like failing to report a fishing vessel that is lost, failing to store fishing gear, failing to comply with a lawful inquiry, leaving or depositing, all of these things that are already in the law, we're going to make them a ticketable offense so that the fisherman doesn't have to waste the time. We don't want them to break the law. But with these offenses, they can pay the ticket, save some time, and move on. We plan to launch this in September of this year. However, as tickets go, if you fail to honor the ticket, then you will have to make your way to court. We have started our new spiny lobster regulations. In fact, lobster is available now if persons had declared that they had lobster prior to and have taken all the steps under the law. I think this is a major step in managing our fisheries. Additionally, we have to do some more in fisheries management. So I'm putting the industry on notice that we will have to start moving now to deal with the size of the fish that we catch. If they are too small, we have to put them back. We have done significant consultation, and what we're now going to be moving to do is to do regulations that stipulate the size of the fish. We have the enforcement officers that are now there. We're saying to the fishers, help us to help you. It doesn't make sense we destroy that we benefit from. We're going to be prioritizing our fishing beaches, and in fact, last year, we did significant work on our fishing beach infrastructure across Black River, Portland Cottage, Pagy, Salem, spent about $88 million retrofitting some of our fishing beaches. This year, we're going to continue that work. White House Fishing Beach is slated for major work. We've started that work. We have about $34 million. We're going to come and open that together, me and the member from Eastern Westmoreland. Additionally, we have acquired 2 additional properties, one in the Braham Wharf in Westmoreland, the other in Green Island in Hanover, to set up 2 new fisheries offices. We're going to continue our boat program. We're going to be doing 20 boats and 20 engines each year. We're also going to be establishing 2 additional fuel depots, one in Trelawney and one in Portland, so that our fishers do not have to go too far to get their fuel. I will now turn to mining. Madam Speaker, the mining sector remains the cornerstone of the Jamaican economy. 10 minutes. The mining sector remains the cornerstone of the Jamaican economy, driving 85% of traditional exports, making it a significant contributor to national development, accounting for about 2% of GDP. Especially at this time of recovery and reconstruction, it is critical that our mining sector continues to grow forward. In 2025, export earnings from our bauxite and alumina subsector was $612 million. And we are seeing increased investor confidence, where the investment in our mining sector for bauxite moved from $251 million to $326 million last year. In fact, Hurricane Melissa did, Madam Speaker, have a significant impact on the productive capacity of our bauxite and alumina subsector. Operational disruptions, infrastructure challenges, but our companies continue to invest. Windalco has completed their haulage road in St. Anne, which opened up access to increased qualities of high-quality ore. They invested about $29 million. Atlantic Alumina has entered into a strategic partnership worth $450 million in relation to Gramercy in Louisiana. And this signals a significant shift in the industry for us here at Discovery Bauxite. They are investing US $45 million this year to construct new haulage road, upgrade their maintenance upgrades, and purchase heavy-duty equipment. Last year, I appointed a review committee chaired by the Honorable Wesley Hughes to look at our management arrangements with Discovery Bauxite. We will be forwarding those recommendations to Cabinet, and then we will advise the House of our next steps. Century Aluminum has invested approximately US $80 million in capital upgrades at Jamaica Refinery, including the installation of a new turbine generator to improve energy self-sufficiency, which should be open the end of May. Madam Speaker, a delegation from my ministry, along with I, will travel to China in June for direct discussions with GISCO. We are seeking a definitive response regarding the reopening of ALPAT and the future direction of its operations. This is a matter of significant importance to the mining sector, and more importantly to the people and communities of St. Elizabeth and to the country as a whole. We have to take a definitive decision about the future of GISCO this year. They had indicated to us that they would start the phase reopening towards the end of last year. We have already set a date to meet with them in person so that they can tell us their plans. If they don't have any immediate plans, the government will have to act. Madam Speaker, a lot has been made about rare earth elements in the past, but unfortunately it hasn't amounted to much. More than a decade ago, Japan's Nippon Light Metal, working with the Jamaica Bauxite Institute, found that our bauxite residue, or red mud, contains rare earth element concentrations that test at roughly 25 times those found in the upper continental crust. Yet the project never proceeded further due to a combination of factors, including world pricing and the fact that what was designed was a pilot, not a commercial plant. There is renewed drive to capitalize on our red mud, Jamaican red mud. Members, it is worth indicating that our Mining Act does maintain that where someone has a license for one mineral but finds another, he is under a duty to report it and to pay royalty. I am of the view that that legal position persists, whether the red mud is here in Jamaica or is in Louisiana. I have asked the Attorney General to opine on the subject, and I have instructed the legal team to make the requisite changes to the Mining Act to make that position beyond doubt. The JBI is now in advanced discussions with the local license holder towards expanding the pilot plant into a full commercial plant. A 2-year process and investment will begin for that this year. A robust sampling program has been executed, and we look forward to a formal signing. I've also instructed the team to finalize the fiscal regime around the production of rare earth elements. Madam Speaker, 70% of our industrial mineral subsector is absorbed locally. It is the foundation of our construction industry, accounting for over 80%, 85% of the cement used. In 2025, production of quarry materials increased significantly to approximately 5.9 million tons from 3.7 million tons in 2024, reflecting a strong demand for infrastructure and construction activities. With the rebuilding, this is going to increase. We are going to continue to ensure that the revenues from non-bauxite mineral operations are collected efficiently and expeditiously, while we continue to encourage investors to move from just mall production and to go into value added. Jamaica has high purity limestone that is using things like antacids, using things like toothpaste. We are seeking investors to establish a factory right here at home. We have long wondered if Jamaica has copper. We have seen some significant partnerships over the last year, including Freeport McMoran, one of the biggest copper companies in the world, partnering with C3 Metals, and they are spending US $75 million to explore for copper. Barrick Mining, who has partnered with Geophysics to expend US $20 million to explore for gold. Madam Speaker, having met with these companies, They have already indicated promising results. C3 Metals have reported encouraging signs of possible large copper deposits and is moving to further exploration. If these partnerships uncover commercial scale deposits, this country will reap great returns. Not only will we see increased export earnings, but we will significantly benefit from the revenue generated through imposed taxes and the collections of royalties. Madam Speaker, the Jamaica Bauxite Institute has redoubled its effort to strengthen bauxite communities with a strong focus on agriculture. You know what we have found? Where the community councils are strong, there is significant engagement. Where the community councils are weak, there is poor engagement. We did 7 audits of bauxite community councils last year, and we're going to be restructuring the community councils. One of the things that's non-negotiable, the MP must have a representative on the community council. Very, very important. And we are going to partner with the SDC to bring in some new blood on these community councils. We have embarked on phase 8 of our bauxite community development program, and we will be spending significant sums on a number of areas. 70 million will be support education activities, 30 million has been earmarked for healthcare. Operation Pipe Water will be accelerated to bring water infrastructure into communities that now does not have water. We are increasing the allocation to members of parliament. Some will be increased by 25%, some by 50%. In fact, no, it's 100%. Sorry, it's 100%. Yeah, man, it's 100%. It's 100%. We have identified 50 acres of land in St. Anne to help with the development of an agri-park. And importantly, in 2024, we launched the Hoylett Lambert Scholarship, where we gave 14 students scholarships amounting to 500,000 each. I'm pleased to announce that we're expanding that, we're doubling the support, and this year we will be offering 30 scholarships to students in bauxite parishes who are studying science, engineering, logistics. Reynolds Port is critical to the future of Jamaica, and we do have a plan to reduce its energy consumption by 84% using renewable energy. But it will take more. Last year, we accommodated 122 cruise vessels, and we continue to drive our limestone exports. We have to do a redevelopment of the Reynolds Port. We do earthquake, and I will speak more about that in the press conference tomorrow. So let me close by saying, one thing that should now be clear to this honorable House and the people of Jamaica: mining, agriculture, and fisheries are not standing still. They're not retreating. They're not surrendering from the pressures before them. Over the last year, we faced hurricanes, drought, global instability, rising costs, supply chain disruptions. We have seen farms destroyed, fishing beaches damaged, operations disrupted. But even in the middle of these challenges, Madam Speaker, our farmers have returned to our fields, our fishers have returned to the sea, our miners have continued to power this national development. Madam Speaker, may God continue to bless our farmers, our fishers, our miners, and the people of Jamaica. I thank you. Bless you.
Madam Speaker, I want to extend our Congratulations on the Minister of Agriculture for what was a very full and detailed speech of achievements and accomplishments for the people of Jamaica and the agricultural sector. We'll now move to the Member of Parliament for Manchester North Western, who I have been advised is aware of the time that he has been allocated. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, please make welcome to his feet. Make welcome to his feet.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to make my contribution to the sectoral debate.
Let me restart your time. Permission to speak from a seat other
Madam
than your own.
Speaker, permission to speak from a seat other than my own.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise again to make my contribution to the sectoral debate with a deep sense of gratitude to the voters of Northwest Manchester, who last September returned me for a fourth consecutive term as Member of Parliament. Gratitude is a must. As we embark on this new term of office, I pledge to continue serving to the best of my ability. I am grateful to the Leader of the Opposition, who is absent today, who is at the funeral for former Minister Hugh Hart, for reappointing me as Shadow Minister of Transport and Mining. I intend to be vigorous and effective. Truth be told, Madam Speaker, the state of both the transport and mining sectors is unhealthy, on life support, and just awaiting the formal pronouncement of death as they limp along, devoid of policies, daily shifts in negative narrative, and perpetual decline. To my family, my wife Rhonda, who is in the gallery, my daughters Isabel and Gabriella, my mother Sandra, my father Peter, who is doing quite well in retirement, and my siblings, you are the very bedrock of my existence, providing the steadfast support that sustain me. Madam Speaker, I want to recognize the students and the teachers from Mile Gully High School, the only high school in Northwest Manchester, and constituents and other visitors, members from the transport sector. Madam Speaker, I turn my focus to transport, a sector currently besieged by frustration for long-suffering commuters and operators. For a decade, spanning the tenure of 4 different ministers, I have consistently demanded a coherent diagnostic and implementable transport policy. The absence of such a policy framework has led to a serious deterioration in uncertainty and efficiency, culminating the embarrassing spectacle of state and private entities now aggressively jostling for passengers and fares across Jamaica. On April 20th, 2026, barely a month ago, the Oakhurst to Kingston corridor was plunged into chaos as bus operators withdrew their services. They were protesting against the state-owned JUTC, whose recent incursions into their licensed routes have been described as a direct assault on their livelihoods. These operators contended that the JUTC is leveraging artificially low fares to create an unfair competitive environment, whittling away routes' revenue expectations. Madam Speaker, this act highlights the desperate need for a coherent policy. And it also begs the question, is it now the administration's intent to cherry-pick profitable routes for state takeover? Does the JUTC still hold an exclusive franchise for the KMTR under the Public Passenger Transport Act, where it is obligated to provide an adequate, safe, and modern service, or has it abandoned its original purpose? Furthermore, it is the same transport authority, by law, dictates fare structure. How can the government justify undercutting those very rates approved by the cabinet, effectively cannibalizing the route yield of the very same investors it has licensed? Madam Speaker, what can really go so, and how unjust can this government be? These are policy issues that the minister must address through the formulation of a comprehensive transport sector policy, so the very investor, financial institution, operator, worker, and importantly, the regulator can have clarity about the roles of all stakeholders in the industry. Without this, Madam Speaker, whatever is the minister's claim, the decline will persist and there will be no prospect of real improvement of transport service for our people. The minister must also be transparent about what he considers improvement under his stewardship. Is it the unchecked explosion of road license? The rampant chaos of taxis performing stage carriage functions? Or is it a race to the bottom where suppressed costs have sacrificed all meaningful service standards? I will leave it to Jamaica to determine whether this minister and the administration he serves have improved the transport sector or just making sweet-sounding announcements without real action or real improvements. Madam Speaker, let us all turn our attention to the JUTC. For a decade now, the JUTC has been languishing in the hospital's accident and emergency department, left on a bench without a bed. They have called on a carpenter to examine the patient, when what is truly required is oxygen and a skilled physician to diagnose the ailment and prescribe the cure. Maybe we could have retained some Cubans for that. Madam Speaker, the JUTC is currently in its most pathetic state since its birth in 1998. The financial wreckage is undeniable. The JUTC has incurred cumulative losses of more than $100 billion over the last decade. A direct consequence of this administration apathy that has left the company in this pathetic state. Madam Finance Minister, listen. Imagine if we had wisely directed those precious taxpayers' dollars. Our nation would today boast a truly world-class transport network. Furthermore, under government's accounting standards, the massive subsidies granted to the JUTC are recorded as revenue, creating a deceptive veneer that masks the entity's true perilous financial condition. This financial toll is immense. A staggering $14.8 billion loss is projected for this financial year alone, with the entity remaining operational only through a $11 billion government grant. Madam Speaker, despite acquiring over 250 new buses, the JUTC farebox revenue, the acid test of performance, and the very lifeblood of its operation has remained largely stagnant or fallen, failing to reflect meaningful growth in any of the measuring tools: bus runout, fleet availability, cycle trips, revenue, staff-to-bus ratio, and cost recovery ratio. The Minister also needs to be reminded that fleet addition will never lead to higher fleet availability unless there is a fleet maintenance. The JUTC's daily operational dispatch remains stubbornly below 300 units, over 450 in 2016 when we were in government. This is a damning indictment considering that with 250 new acquisitions and 170 older units, the serviceable fleet should stand at 420 buses. To illustrate the gravity of the crisis, Madam Speaker, yesterday, May 12, 2026, a mere 221 buses were deployed from all 3 JUTC depots to service the approximately 80 routes across the island. 450 is an optimal number. In his contribution last week, Madam Speaker, the Minister made heavy weather of the 86% surge in charter revenue. The reality is that the fare of paying passengers have declined by 29% year to date, a figure that confirms JUTC remains comatose. The financial devastation has worsened as we look ahead to the 2026-27 fiscal year. JUTC's operating expenditures have skyrocketed to a massive $17.4 billion. This represents an unparalleled $7 billion spike compared with the previous period. Even as fare box and charter collections, the company very lifeblood, remains stubbornly stagnant and anemic at a mere $2.6 billion. 2024-25, it was $1.5 billion. 25-26 is estimated at $1.7 billion. This catastrophic outcome, with a paltry 16.6% cost recovery ratio. So out of every $100, it's only $16 that them basically hold on to. The catastrophic outcome, with a paltry 16.6% cost recovery ratio. In 2016, Madam Finance Minister, it was 60%. Is destined to be regarded as one of the JUTC's most pathetic performances. Given the overwhelming maintenance and administrative costs associated with fare collection, including hardware and software, and the staff requirement of cash handling, we find ourselves at an absurd crossroads. It may be more financially responsible for the government to offer the bus service free of cost and save money rather than maintaining this facade of charging fares for much longer. Madam Speaker, the moment has arrived for this administration to demonstrate genuine and earnest resolve to rescue the JUTC from its current peril. It is truly alarming that although 66% of the current fleet comprises newer units, repair and maintenance costs are set to increase by $3 billion, reaching a staggering $4.2 billion. This is a massive leap from the $1.3 billion recorded in the prior fiscal year. We have to ask what really have gone on at the JUTC. The data is even more chilling. With the fuel allocation projected to rise by an unprecedented rate, a fleet that is primarily powered by CNG and electric buses. This surge arrives even before the impact of global price shocks from the Iran conflict. We must ask what level of internal dysfunction is at play, Madam Speaker. What can really go so? What the minister has been doing is the very definition of sweet talking without substance or real improvement. Furthermore, the JUTC persists in its haphazard rollout of rural transport system, including coach buses. This strategy persists despite the lack of supporting data. This operation is bleeding millions in costs every month, while stagnant, anemic fare box revenue fails to cover even half the operating costs, while the KMTR routes remain underserved. We have called upon the administration time and time again, Madam Speaker, to answer the simple question: why has it taken so long for a national transport plan? What is the long-term vision to rescue and improve our public transportation system? We certainly did not hear it in the minister's presentation last week. This ad hoc patchwork approach, Madam Speaker, has proven to be a failure and will continue to fail both our long-suffering commuters and transport operators. I would like to share some Transport Authority data with my colleagues. In 2026, licenses were granted to 1,600 hackney carriage operators in the KMTR. In 2025, we have 5,200. 363 route taxi in the KMTR in 2016. In 2025, 2,466 route taxis. 12,000 route taxis island-wide in 2016. 20,275 route taxis island-wide in 2025. When you examine these numbers, Madam Speaker, staggering 225% explosion in hackney carriage license within the KMTR over 9 years, together with a 168% surge in route taxes island-wide, reveals the gravity of the crisis. The Transport Authority is merely a cash cow with no interest in quality service. With no additional parking infrastructure, no rationalization of existing systems, and no coherent plan for public transport. Madam Speaker, how much longer must this nation languish before this promised transport plan be delivered? It is no wonder, Madam Speaker, that what is witnessed daily is chaos and mayhem in every town centre across Jamaica, where both operators and commuters are crammed into cars as if it were the Middle Passage, relegating them to a second-class status. I will not dwell upon the escalating confrontations between law enforcement and transport operators. These skirmishes frequently endanger our commuters while projecting an image of public disorder and anarchy. Much of this systemic chaos, Madam Speaker, is a direct consequence of the clear deficit in parking infrastructure. It is the government's fault because the road traffic regulations cannot be fairly enforced in such an environment. Consider the sheer absurdity of doubling taxi license from 13,000, near 14,000 in 2016 to merely 28,000 in 2025, while providing no meaningful parking facilities or logistic support, Madam Speaker. This is the very height of governmental negligence, a move that effectively mandates the congestion and systemic indiscipline now choking every town centre across the nation. And before the mischief from members on that side, Madam Speaker, I'm not an advocate for indiscipline in the public transport sector, but we must recognize some of the contributory factors that causes it. For several years, Madam Speaker, we have been promised the tabling of legislation to amend the Transport Authority Act, yet we are still waiting. This prolonged delay is yet another clear example of this administration's legislative lethargy and its persistent failure to deliver on meaningful reform. We have called for the review of the Road Traffic Act. Still, quite a few sections of the current RTA has not come into being. The demerit points, use of cameras have not yet come into being. Madam Speaker, I would like to propose a 10-point policy plan for the government's consideration. 1, restore bus capacity as the backbone of the KMTR system. The government should set a new clear minimum bus seat target for the KMTR based on peak hour demand and publish quarterly progress. Establish a workable taxi franchise system. It is a national necessity that we move with urgency to establish a functional and workable taxi franchise system in the KMTR. Any thorough evaluation of our transport industry must recognize the indispensable role of our committed taxi operators. And it is time we strategically integrate their service demands. Subsidize and incentivize upgrades. Establish a national modernization grant and loan facility through the strategic partnership with the DBJ and commercial finances. This mechanism should provide restorative finance and partial grants to operators who integrate in the franchise framework and pledge to procure fit-for-purpose units. Establish a coherent and resilient fair framework. Madam Speaker, no discussion of public transport could be complete without mention of passenger fares. I am not an advocate for higher unaffordable fares, but the last increase of 35% took effect on October 15, 2023. 19% was given, and the remaining 16% was promised to take effect on April 1, 2024. On April 1, 2024, the then finance minister said it was too inflationary and canceled the fare order. Madam Speaker, the necessity of a predictable fare policy cannot be overstated. We must confront the reality. While many find high costs unaffordable, keeping rates artificially low without matching government subsidies result in systemic decline and a sharp drop in service standards. Jamaica requires a diagnostic fare formula that accounts for the harsh realities of fuel prices, labor upkeep, and inflationary pressures. A superior, more nuanced approach would involve institutionalizing regular data-driven reviews linked to national inflation metrics. Madam Speaker, this would dismantle the current facade in which the administration refuses meaningful adjustment while expecting operators to bear the burden of an inefficient system. This administration's timid strategy of persistent procrastination, effectively kicking the proverbial can down the road, offers no relief for either our commuters or transport investors. Time and time again, we have advocated for the mandate to determine public passenger fares to be transferred to the Office of the Utilities Regulation. 6, the creation of designated taxi parks, holding areas, and loading zones. 7, use more technology to manage the system. Jamaica should move towards an integrated public transport platform, cashless payment, real-time bus tracking, taxi and bus fare maps, digital routes licensing, passenger complaint tracking, data and passenger demand by route and time. Strengthen enforcement, but make it fair. Enforcement must target the causes of disorder, not just the symptoms. Police and transport authority operations should focus on illegal operations, overcharging, dangerous driving, illegal parking, and route breaches. The Transport Authority has warned operators against unauthorized fare increases, underscoring the pressure created when official fares do not cover operating costs. Enforcement must be paired with reform. You cannot demand order from operators while denying them proper routes, parking, fare adjustments, and business viability. Reform governance. The KMTR needs a single transport planning authority with real power to coordinate JUTC, route taxes, hackney carriage, municipalities, traffic management, and infrastructure. Right now, responsibilities are too scattered. Madam Speaker, these proposals may help to form the core of a national transport plan, a strategic long-term vision to salvage our public transportation system from its current state of decay. We on this side, Madam Speaker, I move to the school bus and rural buses, have long championed the introduction of a robust rural school bus service, a vision I have previously articulated in these very walls during sectoral debates. The current iteration of the system has been hobbling along for over 6 months, launched after the Cabinet essentially handed the Minister of Transport a blank check to procure second-hand units. At that time, Madam Speaker, we cautioned this administration about the inherent limitations of these American-built buses on our roadways. The Minister's response was to dismiss our concerns as bad mind. I must ask, Madam Speaker, will he finally be open with the Jamaican people? It would have been more prudent, Madam Speaker, for this administration to forge a strategic partnership with private investors within the public transport sector. A national school bus service must comprise a synergistic blend of both public and private entities, with a primary reliance on private operators to ensure island-wide efficiency. Implementing such a strategy would afford the administration the necessary fiscal space to desperately rebuild the JUTC, which is currently hobbling along. Madam Speaker, we need only to look to jurisdictions like Florida and New York, which successfully utilize a synergistic blend of public operators and private contracting, all while the state maintains rigorous oversight and safety monitoring. By leveraging private contractors, we can cut operational expenditures by 30 to 40%, while stimulating robust employment and economic growth across our nation. Consider the impact of establishing a specialized credit facility via the Development Bank of Jamaica or a comparable body designed to provide restorative financing and reducing interest rates as a strategic incentive for stakeholders to acquire fit-for-purpose vehicles. Madam Speaker, let us examine the first 6 months of this rural school bus service, which deploys 115 units across 13 parishes. According to the ministry's internal data, this emerging framework has already imposed a high cost to the national budget. Fuel costs amount to $126 million, $21 million in 6 months. Salary obligations totaling $252 million or $42 million every month. This culminates is a cost of $378 million in 6 months. And the figure does not include the ongoing maintenance liability, which is about $40 million a month.
Per month?
Yes, per month. No. I leave these numbers, Madam Speaker, for the Jamaican people and the government to consider, especially while viewed alongside over $100 billion in losses already incurred by the JUTC. the country is owed the courtesy of a national transport plan. Madam Speaker, we on this side put forward the RIDE program, Rural Initiative for Delivering Education, a robust partnership with private operators designated to provide subsidized transport for over 30,000 school children daily across the length and breadth of the island, compared to the 15,000 under this administration. This vision deliberately targets vulnerable students who are forced to navigate multiple transit points just to reach a classroom, bringing much needed relief to their already struggling families. It is a plan that looks beyond simple town-to-town transit, reaching deep in those remote, forgotten communities that currently possess no official routes. Madam Speaker, I want to touch on ride-sharing. Madam Speaker, in a prior address to this House, I recounted the harrowing fate of Daniel Angling, the young educator whose life was tragically extinguished after she engaged in a ride-sharing service in May 2024. The discovery of her remains in Salt River stands as a grim indictment of this administration's catastrophic failure to regulate this rapidly growing industry. A full 12 months have elapsed since the minister stood in this House and solemnly pledged to enact an immediate legislative framework for ride-sharing. Yet in this current session, we are met with another empty vow regarding a national policy that has allegedly just now received Cabinet's approval. A document the minister purports will form the backbone for regulating Jamaica's ride-hailing industry. The contradiction is stark, though. How could a legislative promise be made a year ago when the guiding policy remains non-existent? Can we truly expect the latest framework to finally manifest into actual law? I certainly hope we are not witnessing another year of just sweet talking, another cycle of hollow commitments and a total absence of meaningful protection for the Jamaican people. While the minister slumbers on this matter of life and death, our legitimate law-abiding operators, the dedicated members of JUTA, JCAL, Maxi, and even our Hackney carriage operators are being strangled by systemic inertia. These essential stakeholders are bleeding financially because the government refuses to confront the ride-hailing crisis. It is a disgrace and represents a complete abdication of leadership. Before I assess the aviation landscape, Madam Speaker, it is only fitting that I pause to acknowledge the profound dedication and meritorious service of our aviation workforce. Their tireless efforts following Hurricane Melissa ensured that our vital air connectivity was restored at remarkable speed. Their steadfast commitment during that crisis is worthy of our deepest gratitude. I turn now to focus on airport operations and concession management, specifically the administration's short-sighted decision to securitize future airport cash flow. This move to monetize future revenue to address fiscal demands, including the Spark Road program, effectively mortgaged the future of the next generation. The 2024-25 securitization has pledged government revenues from both the Norman Manley International Airport and Sangsters International Airport, fundamentally altering the incentive structure of airport governance for years. The irony is stark, Madam Speaker. While airport funds are diverted to roadworks, the actual access to our airports and their logistic integration remains woefully suboptimal. This securitization creates a climate of future fiscal rigidity that we can ill afford. By grabbing these future concession cash flows today, Jamaica has surely restricted its future flexibility. We now face intense pressure to protect airport revenues at any cost, a situation that threatens to distort sound diagnostic policy. While the Airport Authority maintains a public commitment to modernization, the reality is a projected loss of nearly $200 million for this fiscal year, 26-27, a staggering decline from the $600 million surplus recorded in the prior year. The long-term repercussions are grave, reducing leverage to renegotiate concession terms, pressure on high fees, and a diminished ability to benefit from growing passenger growth numbers since future flows are already spoken for. While Norman Manley has seen some improvement, it remains commercially anemic compared to its future potential. Ian Fleming's remains strategically neglected, failing to mature into the regional gateway it was promised to be. Madam Speaker, I've sent out my speech, so we have made some recommendation in targeting tax incentives so that we can grow to improve the viability of our airports. I propose the creation of an airport economic zone policy to develop logistics, warehousing, and support the perishable exports. We must transform these terminals into genuine economic platforms. Madam Speaker, just quickly looking at the mining, the Minister spoke about the reopening of GISCO, which is about 5 years overdue. And, you know, I hope, Minister, that they've resolved that issue up in the House and spoke about action, that it is taken and not something that has been kicked down the road. Because, yeah, Madam Speaker, but we need to look at the mining sector, because for a decade and a half, Madam Speaker, we have been subject to the tired refrain that our bauxite reserve possesses a mere 24-year lifespan. We must demand a precise diagnostic assessment of the sector's true health. Concluding, Madam Speaker, the picture I have painted for this House today is not one of progress, but of peril. From a comatose state of the JUTC, hemorrhaging billions of taxpayers' dollars, to the chaos gripping our public roads, to mortgaging the airport authorities, revenue, and the tragic price paid for the administrative legislative lethargy on ride-sharing. It all points to a single domain damning reality. This administration has chosen sweet-talking over serious diagnostic governance. We have exposed the failures to plan, whether for a sustainable national school bus service or a modernized mining sector that truly serves its people. If the government continues to ignore the collapse of public transport and refuses to reform the mining sector, Jamaica's future is bleak. A nation cannot survive if public transport strangles productivity, traps the poor in cycles of lost time and wages, and widens the gap between urban and rural parishes. Workers are late, students are stranded, and commerce and industry have slowed. The economy literally bleeds every hour. And we have asked repeatedly, is there a plan? The clock is not merely ticking, it is counting down to a crisis. I implore this administration, abandon the patchwork fixes, cease the hollow commitments, and deliver the real action that the Jamaican people, our long-suffering commuters,
Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the member from Manchester Northwestern for his very excited presentation. I trust his colleagues. I did not hear the excitement yesterday, but we move on. We will have now the member from St. James Southern, who will make her presentation, Madam Speaker.
Oh, should not come. Okay, good. Okay. You may begin. Madam Speaker, me get up this afternoon to make my first sectoral speech for my portfolio.
Hold on. Standing orders. And I think you are fully aware. And if I have to stop you again during your presentation, you will not get any additional time. No, and she knows. Standing order 6, page 3.
When I speak to this,
Representation and culture. It's not Spanish.
Madam Speaker, Leroy, allow me to speak. A leader. Madam Speaker, perhaps I should abandon that attempt to use our local language because I have been reminded of the linguistic conventions of this honorable House. Because maybe there is no more fitting way to begin a presentation on culture than to speak briefly in the language understood by the overwhelming majority of Jamaican people. Even if that language still struggles for full acceptance in some of our most formal national spaces, including this very parliament. So let me give you the Queen's English. Let me give you the Queen's English. At the outset, permit me first to thank the Leader of the Opposition, the Most Honorable Mark Golding, for the confidence he has placed in me through this portfolio assignment. I also thank my parliamentary colleagues, my councillors, my constituency and personal team, and the many people who support the demanding work of representation and public service every single day. Public life is never carried by one person alone. And I especially want to thank my parents, Miss Fair and Pastor Burchell, for instilling in me from very early a deep love for Jamaica, a deep respect for people, right, Leroy? And a deep pride in our culture, particularly through faith, religion, community, and service. Much of what I understand today about identity, resilience, storytelling, and the spirit of Jamaican people began long before politics. It began in church. It began in my community. It began in school. It began in my yard. And permit me especially to acknowledge the people of South St. James who traveled all the way from country to town to sit in this chamber today to hear their MP deliver her maiden sectoral presentation. From Anchovy to Catadupa, from Maroon Town to Welcome Hall, from Springfield to Mount Carey. Thank you for making the journey. Thank you for believing in me. The people of South St. James are not merely observers of Jamaican culture. We are carriers of it. We're protectors of it, builders of it. And I want them to know that every single day I walk in this house, I never forget what it means to represent you. I never forget where I come from. And I will fight every single day for the people of South St. James and for the dignity, the potential and future of rural Jamaica. I'm a country girl. Before I proceed into the substance of this presentation, permit me briefly to make an observation about the structure of our sectoral debates themselves. It would perhaps be far more useful to the country if the sequencing of these presentations allowed the Jamaicans first to hear from the sitting portfolio minister outlining the government's priorities, their achievements and proposed direction, and then shortly thereafter hear from the opposition spokesperson engaging those ideas directly, identifying the gaps, strengthening the proposals where necessary, and advancing alternative visions where appropriate. That's developmental. Because the purpose of these debates should not merely be performance, political theater, or ritual. They should also function as developmental dialogue. And so in this instance, I speak before the country has yet heard from Minister Olivia Antibabzi-Grange herself. But permit me nonetheless to acknowledge her long-standing commitment to this ministry and the energy she has invested over many years in Jamaica's cultural and entertainment sectors. Big up yourself, Auntie Babsy. But in the absence of that sequencing structure, I will use this opportunity not merely to critique, but to place on the table a broader national vision. Because culture, creativity, entertainment, and information cannot continue to exist at the margins of national development policy. They're not ornamental, they're not side conversations, they're not ceremonial add-ons, they are infrastructure. Economic infrastructure, tourism infrastructure, employment, identity, digital infrastructure, soft power infrastructure, democratic infrastructure. And perhaps no country on earth proves that more clearly than Jamaica. Long before many countries knew our GDP, they knew our music. Before they knew our exports, they knew our athletes. Before they knew our population size, they knew our sound, our language, our creativity, our spirit. Jamaica is a cultural superpower with a developing economy. And that reality demands that we begin treating culture, creativity, and information not as peripheral concerns of government, but as strategic pillars of economic development and global influence. Culture as infrastructure. For some people, culture is an event. For people like me, culture is how we survive. I come to this portfolio not only as a parliamentarian, but as a daughter of rural Jamaica, a daughter of South St. James, raised in communities where culture was not something carefully packaged and occasionally consumed, but something we lived every single day. We heard it in the churches, how we clap, how we dance, how we sing. We heard it in our music. We heard it in the marketplaces. We heard it in the sound systems drifting across districts at evening time. In the cadence of our elders' storytelling, in our revival meetings, in our zinc fence conversations, in the humor and resilience of ordinary Jamaican people. Before I ever studied communication academically at the London School of Economics, I experienced communication culturally. Before I ever understood branding professionally, I understood identity instinctively. And perhaps that is why I approach this portfolio with a deep conviction that culture is far more than your entertainment. Culture shapes how our people see themselves. Culture determines whether a nation walks with confidence or with insecurity. Culture influences how the world sees us and how we see ourselves. Culture carries memory, it carries resistance, it carries aspiration, and it carries opportunity. Yet too often in Jamaica, culture is still treated as an ornamental, as though it is merely something to entertain us after the serious business of nation building is complete. But culture is not separate from development. It builds economies. It builds economies. It builds tourism, builds social cohesion, it builds confidence. It builds diplomacy and global influence. And just like roads, schools, ports, and digital systems, culture requires investment. It requires maintenance, systems, and vision. A country that neglects the cultural infrastructure eventually weakens its national confidence. And a country that exports culture globally while underinvesting in the people who create it leaves enormous economic and human potential unrealized. Too often in Jamaica, culture remains concentrated in Kingston, within isolated institutions, or within occasional annual events, Grand Gala. But culture must live where the people live. And the economic benefits of culture must reach the communities that created it in the first place. That means the rural communities, the inner city communities, the artisans, the musicians, the storytellers, the craft vendors, the food vendors, young digital creators, small business operators, ordinary, everyday Jamaicans whose lives, experiences shape the Jamaican identity the world now consumes. Because Jamaica's culture was not manufactured in a boardroom. It was born in communities, in districts, in churches, in the dancehall spaces. And if culture is truly to become infrastructure, then we must democratize culture. Ownership and economic participation must be opened. What do I mean? The people who create Jamaican culture must also meaningfully benefit from its economic value. At present, too much of our cultural economy remains informal, fragmented, undercapitalized, and understructured. Too many creatives still struggle with financing, licensing, distribution, intellectual property protection, institutional support, and long-term sustainability. Too often we speak about culture emotionally while failing to structure it economically. But culture is not merely performance. It's not an item on the program. Culture is value chains. A properly developed cultural product activates entire ecosystems. The seamstress benefit, the farmer benefit, the chef benefit, the transportation provider benefit, the videographer, the tour guide, the makeup artist, entire communities benefit. And perhaps one of the clearest examples of untapped cultural potential sits deep in the hills of South St. James, the story of our national hero, Sam Sharp. Too often, we reduce Sam Sharp to a portrait on a mural wall somewhere, a face on a currency note, or a once-a-year ceremony attended by a sprinkling of people in Catadupa Square. But Sam Sharp was visionary, intellectual, spiritually grounded, charismatic, revolutionary. And what he ignited through the Christmas War, we don't call it rebellion, helped to accelerate the collapse of slavery across the entire British Empire. He's a powerful man. So it's not merely Jamaican history that he influenced world history. The audacity of that young Baptist preacher from deep bush, South St. James, lit flames of freedom for far beyond Jamaica's shores. So the question becomes, how do we move from memorializing our heroes to mobilizing their stories as living cultural infrastructure? Imagine immersive heritage journeys beginning in Croydon, where he was born, moving through Lapland, Budtrack, Moko, Kensington, tracking their way down into Montego Bay, where he lit flames of freedom. Imagine sections of the old railway system reimagined into experiential heritage journeys, retracing the pathways that Sam Sharp and his freedom fighters moved during the Christmas War. Imagine visitors traveling through history itself, actors, storytellers, drummers, food vendors, costume designers, tour guides, historians, entire communities participating in a living cultural economy rooted in Jamaica's history. Not abstract history, living history. That, Madam Speaker, is how rural economies remain alive. That is how tourism moves beyond resort walls. That is how educational tourism develops. That is how communities participate directly in the monetization of their own heritage and identity. Because Jamaica must move beyond limiting cultural tourism to occasional performances and resort entertainment. People no longer simply want to observe culture, they want to experience it. And Jamaica possesses one of the richest cultural experiences anywhere in the world. But too often we fail to organize it intentionally. Just last week, Jamaica witnessed something deeply revealing. International digital influencer iShowSpeed visited Jamaica briefly. And within hours, millions globally were immersed in Jamaican culture through live streams and social media. And what captured global attention was not polished advertising. It wasn't the sun, sand, and sea advertisement. It was authenticity. People experienced Jamaican humor, or music, language, dance, food, energy, and our big personalities. And of course, iShowSpeed had to come and visit the unofficial tourism minister, Popcorn Andre Sutherland. What we witnessed was digital tourism marketing, but it was packaged for iShowSpeed. We deserve that kind of packaging every week, every month in our country, not just to show off once for the year. So why should cultural activation feel seasonal in the cultural capital of the Caribbean? Why should tourists struggle to find recurring, immersive Jamaican cultural experiences every single week? They should be booking flights coming to Jamaica and know that they will see a Jamaican artist performing that week in a stage show somewhere, not just for some fest. Live performances from our major artists, showcases from emerging artists, dramatizations, storytelling activations, folk performance, dance, showcase, artisan markets, and curated cultural experiences continuously across Jamaica, not just one time for iShowSpeed and to show off for him. And even in recent weeks, Jamaica has been having an interesting cultural conversation surrounding the reinterpretation of the traditional folk piece, Hill and Gully Rider, now reimagined by younger creators through more modern and controversial lens. Some Jamaicans see that reinterpretation as disrespectful to traditional culture. Others see it as evidence that culture is alive, evolving and remixing itself through newer generations and newer forms of expression. And perhaps the real point is not simply whether we personally prefer one version over the other. The real point is that Jamaicans are still engaging with our folk traditions at all. They're still pulling for them, debating them, reworking them, arguing them, and in doing so, keeping cultural memory alive in contemporary spaces. Other countries have built billion-dollar industries around fictional heroes, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, yet Jamaica possesses real heroes whose courage changed history itself. Why should Jamaican children know more about fictional superheroes than about Sam Sharp, Nani, and Paul Bogle? We should dramatize Sam Sharp, animate him, write novels about him, produce streaming series about him, make him emotionally accessible to younger generations, show him as human, young, brilliant, charismatic, in love, alive, because storytelling itself is economic infrastructure. I'll move quickly to the creative industries, entertainment, and economic modernization. The global creative economy is now valued at over US $3 trillion. It is time for Jamaica to claim a larger share. Today, the global economy is increasingly shaped by streaming, digital media, AI, influencer economies, creator platforms, and direct-to-audience activation, or aesthetics, or dance styles, or slangs mid-air. They're traveling globally. Yet too often, Jamaica remains at the edge of the value chain rather than at the center of ownership. We export influence, but we under-capture value. And that is one of the great economic questions of our time. How do we ensure that the people creating cultural value also retain economic value? Because intellectual property is no longer a secondary issue. It is economic infrastructure. And Jamaica must position itself aggressively around copyright protection, licensing, royalties, creator education, digital monetization, and ownership rights. And that is why investment in creative industries cannot be treated as charity or cultural goodwill. It is economic strategy. It is youth employment strategy. It is export strategy. It is digital economy strategy. And that is why the People's National Party had already proposed from as early as 2025 a $1 billion creative economy support fund, regional creative hubs, content studios, audiovisual training, and structured support for young creators and creative entrepreneurs. I think it's time the government do that for them, because talent without structure cannot fully scale. Jamaica must move beyond being merely a scenic backdrop for other people's productions. And I speak as the proud MP of an area in South St. James called Flat Johnson, where one of the earliest James Bond films utilized the beautiful white mountain backdrop in our constituency. So I understand the value of Jamaica's scenery and the cinematic appeal. But Jamaica must move beyond being merely a backdrop for their stories. We must become owners of stories ourselves, exporters of stories, controllers of intellectual property. Because storytelling is one of the most powerful economic tools in the modern world. And this conversation must also include entertainment itself. Because Jamaica's marketed identity versus Jamaica's regulatory reality remains deeply contradictory. And those lived contradictions within Jamaican entertainment policy must now be confronted honestly, Juliet. This is why the PNP proposed special entertainment zones, one-stop simplified licensing systems, and more coherent entertainment frameworks. Because entertainment is not disorder. Stop, lock off the dance. Entertainment is economy. Entertainment is employment. It is tourism. It is youth opportunity. Entertainment is national identity. And yes, residents deserve peace. Communities deserve safety, but regulation cannot continue functioning primarily as suppression, lock off the dance. So we cannot continue to hypocritically celebrate dancehall globally while criminalizing many of its economic spaces locally. And even the government itself has acknowledged the need for structured entertainment infrastructure through discussions surrounding entertainment development zones in areas such as Negril, as announced by the Prime Minister. Or is that something that they made up on the campaign trail? Is this merely another announcement because nothing still not go on? The issue is whether we are approaching Jamaica's brand and identity comprehensively, intentionally, and nationally. And that brings us to Rastafari and Ganja. Because Jamaica's response to St. Kitts' formal recognition of Rastafari exposed something uncomfortable. Yes, Jamaica pointed to broad constitutional protections around freedom of religion, but perhaps the deeper issue is that we were not sufficiently intentional. We did not go far enough. And because we did not fully structure, codify, and affirm something so deeply Jamaican, another country was able to claim leadership in formally recognizing what the world already associates most powerful with Jamaica itself. Them a take Rastafari from us. Because Rastafari is not merely an aesthetic exported through reggae music and tourism imagery. It is philosophy. It is a spiritual tradition, a political history, and a way of life born from resistance. The contradiction that contradiction too must be addressed honestly. And we must also confront the unresolved contradictions surrounding ganja itself. The 2015 amendments to the Dangerous Drugs Act under the PNP administration represented an important step toward reducing the criminalization of ordinary Jamaicans, particularly poor youth, entertainers, and Rastafarians, whose lives were permanently damaged by criminal records connected to small quantities of marijuana. That reform mattered. You didn't deal with that. PNP did that. That was 2015. That was 2015. But over a decade later, you don't do nothing about it. Jamaica must honestly ask what comes next. Because while global cannabis industries continue expanding medicinally, commercially, and economically, Jamaica still appears uncertain about how strategically it intends to position itself within ganja's future. And the worst thing about it is that too often, those now economically positioned to benefit from the emerging ganja industry are not the same communities that endured decades of criminalization and exclusion under the old system. That contradiction too must be confronted honestly. I'll speak quickly to my other portfolio assignment, information. Let me now turn briefly to talk to you about information itself as infrastructure. The architecture of public communication is changing rapidly across the world. Traditional media institutions are under severe economic pressure. Advertising revenues are shrinking. Digital disruption is accelerating. Audience habits are changing. Newsrooms are shrinking. Media houses are restructuring. And increasingly, government itself has become one of the largest advertising clients, sustaining portions of the traditional media ecosystem. Every other advertisement on radio and TV is sponsored by a government agency, ministry, department. And strangely, government itself now appears to be attracting many of the very workers traditionally media houses are struggling to retain. We're told that one is being moved to JIS shortly. So the media, the government is okay with the media shrinking because they don't need that third estate to hold them to account. At the same time, concerns continue to emerge surrounding media sustainability, concerns around government advertising concentration. Some stations get more than others of the government's advertising spend. Some stations get hefty tax write-offs and others are struggling. And this raises important questions about public communication governance and the independence of media that must make you feel uncomfortable. Because across government today, communication spending has become Madam Speaker, there may have some protection, please, from the leader of government business acting. Madam Speaker, my time.
Members,
I want
please
protection
allow the
from the
member
Deputy House Speaker,
to
Madam
have her
Speaker.
presentation. What did she say?
Madam Speaker, I'm not hearing you. You can rule in favor of protection.
Are you standing?
Point of order.
Is there?
Madam Speaker,
It's standing order.
on a point of order. A very serious allegation was made by the Speaker. The Speaker said that a media house, the presenter said a media house was the beneficiary of massive write-offs, tax write-offs. She said a media house was the beneficiary of massive tax write-offs. Madam Speaker, I would like the Speaker to be clear, since she is presenter, to establish which media house has been the beneficiary of massive tax write-offs. Because, Madam Speaker, she has come to the house and cast a cloud over the entire media in Jamaica that they are benefiting from tax write-offs from the government, and there is no fact about it, and I needed to rule.
I needed that sip of water. Thank you for the opportunity.
Member, I'm not running your time. Please hold.
Thank you. Who you talking about? Nation? Who you talking about? Who you talking about? Who? You weren't listening up to now. Just like Paris, a country suit. This is not Paris, this is a country suit.
What are we doing?
So, are you ready? Members, I'm allowing the member to go ahead. The question raised as a point of order in respect of an allegation made against a class of individuals or entity, which would be media houses. And in fact, if one is being claimed, no name was called, and therefore I'm ruling that the member continue, as the member would not have. Yes.
Madam Speaker, I'm asking for protection under Standing Order 40. And I hope that the leader of opposition government business can observe that. All right, so while we protect some, the Jamaica's institutions of communication, such as JIS and the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica, whose very mandate is public communication, is being under-invested in. So Parliament and the public are entitled to ask, who has eyes on the total national communication spend across government? Every government, every agency, every department has a huge PR budget. And I raised that very question to the Information Minister during the Standing Finance Committee here, and she said she don't know how much money is being spent on information collectively across the government service. So where does duplication exist? What value for money oversight exists? And are taxpayers receiving maximum public benefit from these expenditures? Because if JIS and PBCJ exist, then we must honestly ask whether Jamaica is operating a coherent national communication framework or an increasingly fragmented political parallel communications architecture. And this matters because communication spending is not insignificant in a government heavily focused on PR. We see it even here in Parliament. Our ministers, prime ministers increasingly utilize external production agencies and firms and communication teams surrounding sectoral presentations and major announcements and giving nice, pretty bags. And then building and instead of building and strengthening the institutional capacity of PBCJ itself. So the issue is not whether government should communicate. Of course, government must communicate. The issue is whether state communication is being strategically coordinated, transparently managed, and institutionally grounded. Because government communication must outlive governments. Public information belongs to the people, not to personal algorithms or individual political branding messages around ministers themselves. And that is why Jamaica urgently needs a modern digital communication policy, a social media governance framework, an artificial intelligence policy, and stronger information management systems across government. Because, and I'll say it again for effect, because ministers and deputy speakers change, governments change, but public institutions remain. And transparency delayed too often becomes transparency denied. And ordinary Jamaicans continue to experience communication breakdowns in real life through poorly coordinated government systems. No NARA can solve poor governance. We saw this recently in programs such as Roofs, where many citizens struggle to even access clear information, proper updates, functioning help desks, and coherent communication pathways. That's why money still left unspent from burial and ketchup for Melissa money. That is not merely a public relations issue. That is governance infrastructure. Ultimately, this entire presentation, Madam Speaker, comes down to one central idea. Jamaica possesses extraordinary cultural power, but power without structure becomes leakage. Influence without ownership becomes exploitation. Talent without policy becomes vulnerability. And if Jamaica is serious about the future, then culture, creativity, entertainment, and information can no longer remain side conversations in national development. They must become central pillars of economic modernization itself, because culture is not decoration. Culture is infrastructure. And if we build it seriously, intentionally, and inclusively, then perhaps Jamaica will finally begin capturing the full value of the genius its people have always possessed. I thank you.
House Leader. House Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the three presenters who presented today. Relax. I want to thank the Minister of Agriculture, Floyd Green, who gave a very fulsome appraisal of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining. Also, the very valuable presentation by the Member of Parliament for Northwestern Manchester, Mikael Phillips, and also her maiden voyage, the Member of Parliament for Southern St. James, who shadows the culture portfolio. Want to thank, it's her maiden voyage. Thank you very much to all the presenters. Madam Speaker, next week we will have presentations by the Honorable Minister in charge of Labour and Social Security, the member from Clarendon Northern, and we'll also have the member from St. Catherine Southeastern, and as such I move for the sectoral debates to be suspended until the 19th of May. I move for it to be suspended until the 19th of May.
Would you be so kind as to also ask, as time is past 3:15, to also vote on allowing the member to, or allowing the House to receive questions. So just two things. So let me put first suspending the sectoral presentation. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it, House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I also ask for you to recommit the item questions and answers to questions.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Time is beyond 3:15. I ask that you ask the House. I now move that the House be allowed to receive questions and answers to questions at this time.
Thanks, House Leader. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. Member Vaz. Member from Westmoreland Central.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will ask the Minister of Local Government and Community Development the question standing in my name.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, it is not intended for any further business today, and as such, I ask that the House be adjourned until the 19th, until a date to be fixed.
Question is that the House do now adjourn for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This Honorable House now stands adjourned.
When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk, people, make we talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, make we talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Make we talk.